There is a silent wisdom that is born with time. It teaches us that the most precious good we possess is not what we have accumulated, but the peace we inhabit. And this wisdom teaches us to recognize the subtle, almost inaudible sound of the doors that must be closed to protect this peace. If you are here, it is not by chance. It is likely because you have reached that crossroads in life where, despite a full existence, you feel a form of exhaustion that comes not from the body, but from the soul. You have given, supported, loved, and yet, you feel your vital energy being siphoned off by invisible dynamics. You begin to feel unease in the face of certain demands, an inner resistance to situations you once accepted without flinching. It is not that your heart has hardened. It is that your awareness has sharpened. You intuitively understand that your tranquility is sacred ground, and not everyone should have the right to plant their own dramas there. The great psychologist Carl Jung identified this turning point not as a sign of egoism, but as a crucial and necessary stage of human development, the call of our soul to its individuation. For Jung, these feelings of unease are messages, signals sent from the depths of our being to tell us that it is time to choose ourselves. For our true self to finally emerge, we must learn to unload the weights that do not belong to us. Today we will identify 5 of these toxic demands, 5 invisible chains that it is imperative to recognize and break to reclaim the sovereignty of your spirit. Do you recognize this role? That of the silent savior, the tireless architect of others' peace. It always starts with a simple request, a favor your empathetic nature cannot refuse. But this first step on this path is an illusion. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the favor becomes an expectation. The expectation becomes a responsibility, and before you even realize it, you have become the pillar upon which the crises and anxieties of everyone around you rest. You are the person who is called at midnight, not to share a joy, but to put out a fire you did not start. This role of glue that holds everything together is a slow poison. It flatters your ego, gives you a sense of usefulness, but it drains you of your vital substance. Your energy, this precious and limited resource, is siphoned off drop by drop to fill the gaps in the lives of others, while the foundations of your own inner temple crack. You become a ghost in your own existence, haunted by the problems of others, forgetting to live for yourself. This need to carry others is deeply linked to what Jungian psychology calls the shadow. The shadow is that part of us that we refuse to see, that set of desires, fears, and weaknesses that we repress. By taking on the role of the savior, you project an image of strength and altruism. But what is the truth hidden in your shadow? Perhaps a panicked fear of not being loved if you are not useful. Perhaps an inability to face your own inner emptiness, which you fill by taking on external dramas. Carl Jung teaches us that as long as we do not integrate our shadow, it governs us. Every burden you accept is another weight added to an invisible bag you carry, a bag filled not only with the problems of others, but also with your own unlived life. You are like a powerful ship, capable of crossing oceans, but which chooses to remain at the dock to unload the cargo of all the other ships, slowly rusting in place, without ever exploring its own horizons. Recognizing this is not a failure, it is the beginning of wisdom. Refusing these burdens is not an act of selfishness, but an act of sacred reclamation. It is declaring to the world and to yourself that your life is not a dress rehearsal for someone else's show. You are the protagonist of your own epic. Think of your life as a work of art that you sculpt every day. Each yes to a request that drains you is a scissor cut that distorts your creation, shaping it according to someone else's desires. Saying no is the act of taking back the tool, of deciding the form you want to give your own soul. This requires courage, because the world has become accustomed to your availability. But by setting this boundary, you are not closing your heart. On the contrary, you are protecting it so that it can love more authentically, not out of obligation, but out of deliberate choice. You are teaching others, and above all yourself, that your peace is not a resource to be plundered, but a treasure to be guarded. And this realization is the first key to your liberation. The path to inner peace requires setting boundaries not only with those who drain your energy, but also with those who threaten your stability. And this brings us to the second type of request, one that approaches masked, wearing the guise of deep love or friendship. It rarely arrives as a blunt demand, but rather as a whispered confidence, a story of bad luck, a project that almost succeeded. The person before you isn't just asking for your money. They are appealing to your heart, your loyalty, the memory of your bond. They instinctively know that your empathy is a door that can be pushed open. And that's where the trap closes. This is not about a life-threatening emergency, an unexpected health crisis that calls for unwavering solidarity. No, these are requests born from a cycle of poor management, a desire to live beyond one's means, an expectation that you will be the permanent safety net for repeated errors. Yielding to this pressure is not simply doing a favor. It is validating behavior that weakens the other person in the long run and jeopardizing the security you have spent decades building with discipline and sacrifice. Here, we witness a powerful conflict between what Carl Jung called the persona and the shadow. Your persona is the social mask you present to the world, that of the generous friend, the successful person, the one who can be counted on. It is this persona that feels obligated to say yes to maintain its status, to avoid being judged as stingy or insensitive. But in your shadow, in the depths of your psyche, another voice rumbles. It is the voice of frustration, of resentment at seeing your hard work treated as an inexhaustible resource. It is the voice of wisdom that recognizes the emotional manipulation at play. Jungian psychology teaches us that true integrity is not found in maintaining a perfect mask, but in listening to and integrating this shadow. By refusing to lend, you do not become a bad person. You become a whole person. You honor the part of you that knows the value of prudence, hard work, and healthy boundaries. You refuse to let your benevolent persona be exploited at the expense of your real well-being. Saying no to such a request is an act of financial and emotional sovereignty. It is making the crucial distinction between generosity and imposed sacrifice. Generosity is a chosen gift, an act that comes from a surplus of heart and resources, and that does not put you at risk. Imposed sacrifice through emotional blackmail, on the other hand, weakens you, creates resentment, and poisons the relationship. Imagine your financial security as a dam you have patiently built, stone by stone, to protect your future and that of your loved ones. Every loan granted lightly is a crack in that dam. You have the right and the duty to protect it. A firm but respectful no, although difficult in the moment, is often healthier for the relationship in the long run than a resentful yes. It lays the foundation for mutual respect, where your friendship is valued for what it is, not for what it can finance. It is a silent but powerful declaration. I respect you and I respect myself enough not to let us sink into a dynamic of dependency. But the threats to your peace are not always material. Sometimes they are closer, more intimate, and they infiltrate from where you least expect it, the very heart of the family. You know this role, that of the emotional referee, the unofficial diplomat in internal wars. You are drawn into the middle of a conflict that does not belong to you, burdened with the impossible mission of reasoning with one person, of calming the other. Each side presents you with its version of events, not to find a solution, but to recruit an ally, to obtain validation. And you, moved by love and the desire for harmony, place yourself in the center of the storm. You become a human lightning rod, attracting all the lightning of accumulated frustrations and resentments, hoping in this way to protect the house. But the lightning rod, while protecting the structure, takes the full discharge. It is an untenable and profoundly destructive position. No matter what you do or say, you will end up being the target of reproaches, accused of partiality by one, of betrayal by the other. You exhaust yourself maintaining an artificial peace, a fragile truce in a war whose beginning or rules you did not write. From a Jungian perspective, a family is not just a group of individuals, but a psychic system with its own collective unconscious. This system contains decades of secrets, invisible loyalties, unhealed wounds, and unresolved dynamics, the family shadow. When two members enter into conflict, they often activate these old wounds. By placing yourself in the middle, you become the screen onto which they project everything they cannot or do not want to see in themselves or in the other. You are no longer a brother, a sister, or a child. You become the symbol of their inability to communicate. You carry the weight of their lack of individuation. The great project of life, according to Carl Jung, is the process of individuation, this journey of becoming oneself, whole and differentiated from collective patterns. By accepting the role of mediator, you sacrifice your own individuation on the altar of family dysfunction. You remain entangled in patterns that prevent you from charting your own path, from finding your own peace. Withdrawing from this role is not an act of abandonment, but an act of courage and self-preservation. It is recognizing that your energy is sacred and limited. Imagine your inner peace as a secret garden. Do you have the right to let the conflicts of others come and trample your flower beds and uproot your flowers? No. Your primary responsibility is to cultivate this garden, to nourish it with joy, silence, and healing. By refusing to play the referee, you are not saying, "I don't love you anymore." You are saying, "I love myself enough not to participate in your mutual destruction." This withdrawal creates a vacuum. And it is in this vacuum that the people involved finally have the opportunity and the responsibility to face each other. You give them back their power and their problem. You offer them the greatest respect, the confidence that they are capable of managing their own lives. And you offer yourself the greatest gift, the permission to live yours. After learning to protect your boundaries from external conflicts, the battle moves to an even more intimate territory, the sanctuary of your being. For here is the most violent demand, a true aggression against the soul, the one that commands you to stop being yourself. It doesn't always present itself as an ultimatum. Most often, it is a slow poison, distilled in small drops of daily criticism. You shouldn't wear that. Why do you laugh that way? Your passions are strange. You should be more like this, less like that. Each sentence is a small cut made by a sculptor you haven't hired. He seeks to carve into the marble of your personality, to conform you to an image that reassures him. The problem is that you are not an inert stone. You are the result of decades of experiences, joys, sorrows, discoveries. Your habits, your tastes, your quirks, even your oddities, are the sacred threads that weave the unique tapestry of your history. Asking to remove a single thread is threatening to undo the entire work. The great psychologist Carl Jung dedicated his life to the study of the process he calls individuation. It is the journey of a lifetime to become fully and entirely oneself, integrating all facets of our being to reach what he calls the self, our authentic center. Any demand for fundamental change coming from the outside is a direct attack on this sacred process. The person who asks you to change doesn't truly see you. They see in you a mirror of their own insecurities, their own lacks, their own conformity. Your authenticity, your unique light, perhaps illuminates what they have repressed in their own shadow, their abandoned dreams, their extinguished joy. So instead of doing their own inner work, it is simpler to ask you to extinguish your light. To yield is to accept becoming a secondary character in the psyche of another. It is betraying the most important quest of your existence, the discovery and expression of your true self. Remaining faithful to who you are is therefore not stubbornness, but an act of psychological survival, the highest form of self-love. It is a declaration of faith in your own story. This process of soul mutilation has no end. If you agree to change the way you dress, next will come the way you speak, then your friends, then your dreams, until the day when, looking in the mirror, you will see only a stranger, an empty construct made of the desires and fears of others. Your being is like a unique melody in the universe. You have spent your life learning its notes. Don't let anyone convince you to play someone else's score. Protecting your authenticity means continuing to play your music, even if the whole world dances to another rhythm, for it is the only song that your soul will recognize as its own. Finally, after defending the borders of your identity, there remains one last fortress to protect, the most subtle and most besieged of all, your emotional landscape. This is where the most insidious manipulation takes place, for it is adorned with the most beautiful trappings of love and intimacy. It consists of making you responsible for the other's happiness. Your inner compass is gently removed from your hands and replaced by another, which no longer points towards your own north, but towards theirs. Every decision, every action, every word must first be measured by the yardstick of their potential reaction. How will he take it? Will it upset her? You begin to walk on tiptoes in your own life, reducing the sound of your joy so as not to disturb their silence, minimizing your success so as not to hurt their ego. You become an emotional satellite, forced to orbit around their planet of needs, fears, and moods, forgetting that you too are a star that has the right to follow its own trajectory. This dynamic, where emotional boundaries blur, is a form of what psychology calls psychic entanglement. It is anti-individuation. In a healthy relationship, two complete beings choose to walk side by side. In this toxic dynamic, one person asks the other to fill their own voids. This is often summarized by the ultimate emotional blackmail. If you really loved me, you would do this for me. It must be said clearly, as a guide like Jung would. This is not love. It is an attempt at control. It is the other person's refusal to face their own shadow, their own feeling of insecurity. They ask you to become the guardian of their well-being so they don't have to face the most difficult and essential task there is, finding the source of that well-being within themselves. By accepting this role, you become complicit in an illusion that traps both of you. Saying no in this context is a declaration of emotional independence. It is the most courageous and loving act you can perform for yourself and, paradoxically, for the other. It is drawing a clear line and saying, I am responsible for my emotions, and you are responsible for yours. I can listen to you, support you, love you, but I cannot feel in your place, nor sacrifice my own feelings to protect you from yours. You have a fundamental right to joy, to fullness, to make decisions that make your soul sing, even if it displeases or disturbs others. Every time you say no to protect your peace, every time you choose an action that nourishes you, you offer the most resounding yes to your own existence. You reaffirm that your life belongs to you and that your well-being is non-negotiable. This is self-respect in its purest form. Refusing these 5 demands might seem difficult, even selfish, in a world that has so often taught us to say yes to be loved. But what we have explored today is not a handbook of selfishness. It is a manifesto for the sovereignty of your soul. What may appear as a series of refusals is in reality the greatest of consents, the consent to be yourself. This new firmness born within you is not armor that isolates you. It is the backbone that finally allows you to stand tall in your full and complete truth. It is not an act of closing off from the world, but the opening of a door towards healthier relationships, based no longer on obligation, but on respect and authenticity. If these words have resonated with your soul, know that you are not alone on this path. It is the journey of all who are awakening to their own worth. To continue this exploration together, subscribe to the channel. And to anchor this decision within you and recognize one another, comment below with this simple affirmation: my peace is my priority. Share this video with someone who perhaps needs to hear themselves being given permission to say no. This is how we create a community of consciousness and respect. Ultimately, remember this. Protecting your inner peace is not a defense strategy. It is the highest form of devotion towards the life flowing through you. No longer be afraid of the silence that follows a necessary no. It is in this silence that you will finally hear the only voice that truly matters, the one you had stifled for so long, your own. Your existence is not a resource at the disposal of others. It is a temple. Honor it.